Tara, you and I know each other from growing up in Canton. You were my brother's grade, 3 years younger than me. We obviously knew each other, but we're kind of 3 years apart.
Yeah.
Both from Canton. I know just from following on social media, you kind of get people's stories. You've been a huge advocate in breast cancer awareness, fundraising. You are a breast cancer survivor. Tell me about your story, and we'll lead up to that and go from there. From the beginning, go.
Yeah.
Just tell me what you want to tell me.
Thanks, Mike. Well, I mean, I think the part of the story that you've asked about is, yes, it's cancer. I was 32. I had a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old, found a lump in my breast, got it checked out, learned very quickly that I had triple positive breast cancer. Didn't see that coming, as many of us, don't see anything like life coming at us when it does.
And otherwise, you were completely healthy, no signs or anything.
Nothing. I've always, pretty much taken care of myself. Was an athlete, like you said, like I, don't drink a lot. I've never smoked. I've never done drugs, like, very, very careful with my health, I would say. And so that started the journey of obviously then having to deal with it. So underwent a double mastectomy, chemotherapy, biotherapy for a year, which is really the drug that saved me, because a triple positive breast cancer diagnosis was otherwise a very fatal diagnosis. Now, 2 decades ago, but at the time it was, 1 decade ago was really when they came up with these medications that were helping people with that kind of cancer.
What does that mean, triple positive breast cancer?
So it just means, so there's kind of like 3 elements of the breast cancer. If it's receptive to estrogen, that would make it positive for that. If it's receptive to progesterone, the hormones, 2 hormones we have in our bodies naturally. And then if it has this HER2 protein, and it was the HER2 protein that was making this particular type of breast cancer incredibly deadly. And I think the prognosis was 1 to 2 years. It wasn't good with that HER2 positive element. And so before that, they had done a ton of research, really given the deadly nature of that particular type of breast cancer, which was pretty prevalent in much older people. I was only 32. That was very rare at the time, and still probably is. But I was told it was very, very rare at the time. And this is now 12 years ago. So I did all the therapies, struggled, I think everyone hits bumps. I happened to have an anaphylactic reaction to the chemotherapy. I've never been allergic to anything, but that was obviously really hard to have to go off the protocol, because my body rejected the drug significantly. But they still found a way to give it to me in a desensitization unit, in the ICU, did all that. And just kind of got through it while raising my 2 kids, trying to work.
And you make that sound like it was no big deal, like as though you're kind of just going in for cancer treatments, all that. Obviously, when you get the diagnosis, you get like, shit, like life expectancy, what or whatever. Like, tell me about that, whether it's weeks, months, like how did you, it's like immediate trauma and life flashed before your eyes. Like, how did you kind of work your way through that? Not only the physical stuff, but also that.
I mean, I'd be so curious if you feel this way too, but talking about it is as if I'm talking about another person. And I don't mean that, and it's almost just like that person who had that experience, August 8th, 2012, hearing that news is like such a different person than I am right now. Obviously, it's a long time ago. And so it's like, and I'm sure, I mean, I don't know how much when you're, doing what the kind of work we do, raising kids and working and doing our thing, like, I don't know how much you really process that kind of trauma. I think you just kind of sometimes have to keep moving. But I wrote a lot about it. I would say that. I mean, I wrote every day. It's probably how you even heard my story, right? I think a lot of people deal with a lot of incredible things, and no one ever knows, right? Because I mean, how would you know? I did write that just because that was selfishly the way that I coped. And it's like what I actually did to feel some control over something. And so, it's hard to, like, I feel like what I wrote, that's the real, what I was doing, what I was feeling. And I mean, looking back on it, the only way I could summarize it would just be the feeling that like your world just fell out from underneath you. I mean, it's like a crazy metaphor, but that's like the best way I can describe it, is like the world was supporting you, and like here you are standing on the planet, and then just in a split second, you're kind of floating slash sinking slash drowning.
Yeah.
And you're just like, you know, almost like a wave of like, okay. And almost like a wave hits you. And then you're like 2 minutes later, okay, I can do this. And then a minute later, I can't, I'm actually going to drown and die in this pain. And then, nope, I
Yeah.
can do this. And it's like, it's that just constant wave. I mean, sometimes I just remember thinking like, how could anything be more painful than this? But then, and this is where I just look up to you so much, like the one thing that did rescue me every time was like, I would rather it be me than my kids, like that. And that rescued me every time. And so I know that, you know, when I look at people who are now dealing with their kids being sick, yeah, I just can't, I just have the truly the utmost respect. I mean that from the bottom of my heart, because I know how much of pain I was in, and I know I still had that thing I could say every time that at least it's me and not my kids.